Call the planning commission meeting of January 8th, 2025 to order. Roll call, please.
Chair McNiff,
Here.
Commissioner Banfield,
Here.
Commissioner Bright,
Here.
Commissioner Fitzgerald,
Here.
Commissioner Hodo,
Here.
Commissioner Stewart,
Here.
Commissioner Zulk. You have a quorum?
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the December 11th, 2024 meeting.
Move. Second. Banfield. Hodo.
Any discussion, any changes? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes from December 11th, 2024 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
So move, Stewart. Second. Hodo.
Any changes to the agenda tonight? Any discussion? Any additions? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda for this evening signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we have the public comment on agenda items. So anybody wanting to address the board regarding an agenda item who's not here as a proponent of a matter, please come forward and state your name and your address. If you're here to discuss like the site plan or the East Prospect vacation, we can hold off until those subjects come up. So, but if there's anybody who's not a proponent of one of the issues who wants to come forward to discuss those agenda items, please come now. Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the election of officers.
Madam Chair, I nominate you as chairman.
Thank you. I'll accept.
I second. Fitzgerald.
And
Any other?
anyone else want to nominate anyone else for the chair? It's totally fine if you do. Okay, see none, I will elect Mr. Banfield as vice chair.
I'll accept that.
Support.
Great. And is all those, we should have done one at a time, shouldn't we?
That's okay.
It's
You
okay.
can go.
All those in favor of electing me as chair signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Congratulations to me. The motion. I appreciate all of your your support, and one of these days, one of you guys who are younger have to do this, so. Deal. Next, we need to vote on Commissioner Banfield. All those in favor of Commissioner Banfield as vice chair signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Also carries. Speech.
Speech. I don't know how I could get by another year. No. Thank you very much for your support.
And next, we need to appoint the Joint Planning Commission appointments. And we don't vote on those. I'm just going to appoint.
No,
them.
that's your point.
So I appoint Aaron Hodo as a commissioner. We already have Mr. Banfield and Mr. Fitzgerald as commissioners currently, and Mr. Bright as the alternate. Okay. Next, we have a public hearing for the 2025 capital improvement plan. And I will open that public hearing. Is there anybody from the public who wants to speak about the capital improvement plan? Seeing no one, will close that hearing. I'll accept a motion to consider and recommend the capital improvement plan to council.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to move, after reviewing, to move this on to city council for their consideration and approval.
Is there a second?
Second, Hodo.
Any discussion?
Yeah, just a couple quick questions. Who's speaking for the city? Marcia? Great. So why are some of the columns not listed as a priority? Are those gonna just happen? Because like ones are, we've always done in the past, ones are important and probably will happen, whereas there's some that are not given a priority.
So I think that is still
Oh.
correct ranking system, where I think we're still ranking it according to our intended priority in case this gets to a board or council that tells us that we need to, eliminate a whole bunch of items.
Okay, well, just as an example, the Department of Public Works, the second item listed, facility, material, et cetera. It doesn't have a priority ranking, so,
Mhm.
so,
There were quite a few that I saw that
Yeah,
didn't have
there are.
rankings.
As, I think that just means that we didn't give you additional help in that process of, if there was an elimination process as for this capital improvement project or plan, to help guide what we felt. Now, I don't know if that was incredibly intentional that was missed. What I can do, if it's okay with you guys, that before this goes to city council, we could go in there and add
Sure.
those priorities that we may have missed.
Yep.
Thank you for pointing that out.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I assumed maybe those had a very low ranking as a result of not having one.
Yeah, and well, it's either that or it's because it's in one section. We might have just copied and pasted and maybe just missed redoing that allocation. So, we will make sure that we address those, before this moves on to that next stage.
Or what you were saying is that they all could be number twos as an example. Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I can
Yeah,
make that distinction myself.
it switches from Department of Public Works to engineering without any priority, so just
Yeah.
checking.
Yep.
And as in the past, the city council uses this to help develop the agenda.
And
Keeps them,
sometimes a priority one doesn't necessarily make top of the list if it's the most expensive item in the category. But it needs to be, it helps us know which ones are.
You want to approach?
uh,
Just for the benefit of others that are, maybe watching this later, I'm going to have him step up since he's at the city council. He can speak to that.
So, I mean, you're all familiar with capital improvement plan, why we
Can you tell
have it as a rolling.
People out there, your name.
I'm sorry, Scott Wolfersberger, Mayor of Marshall.
Thank you.
So as far as prioritization goes, it's largely based on what's been assessed as the largest need. But a lot of times, again, if the largest need is also the most expensive, we may try to hit some lower categories, so at least get some things accomplished. But it's, I can't speak to why there aren't priorities in certain spaces. But it's, yeah, we'll make sure it gets corrected.
we've talked about before, it gives the different departments also an opportunity to do review and then be able to put forward things that they know that are going to need to be done.
Right. It's, and actually we've added a new kind of direction to it as well, where if departments have some overlapping needs, we're going to try very much to leverage economies of scale. There's like a couple things we have going on with the phone system, with some camera in different areas we want to put in, especially like the parks. And so we're just kind of integrating all of that with a larger effort from the police department and from a couple other of the utility areas to make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck.
Makes sense.
Thanks.
Thank you, Scott.
Anybody have anything else? All right, all those in favor of recommending the capital improvement plan to the city council signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Looks like we don't have any old business. And so next are the reports and recommendations and new business. And first is to introduce and set a public hearing for 1154 West Michigan Ave site development plan. Ms. Strange, would you like to speak about that?
Can I make a motion first for the date?
We could, whatever.
I'll move, Madam Chair, I move to set February 10th, is it? 12th. Yeah. Set February 12th, public planning commission meeting as the date for a public hearing to review the 1154 West Michigan Avenue site development plan.
Is that date satisfactory? You want it in February?
That is the intent.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second, Hodo.
All those in favor of setting the public hearing for the 1154 West Michigan Avenue site development plan for February 12th, 2025, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Now, would you like to introduce?
Yes, thank you. Thank you guys for the opportunity tonight. We do have the engineer here and the owner. So we have some other additional opportunities for a presentation. What you have in your packet is preliminary site plan drawings that are pretty encompassing. A few things that I wanted to point out, if you're kind of doing your own review, that this project has previously been granted a zoning board of appeals variance so that it can be a 4-story building in that area. And if you look at the drawings, it is going to be a 4-story building. We have had a little bit of communication with the designer about parking allotment. And we did a lot of the numbers based on what Marriott recommendations are. In our zoning ordinance for parking, there is, we can add some parking based on meeting room sizes. Because of, and this is just per my review of the site, I made the recommendation that several spots be allocated for a future parking addition so that there wasn't quite as much asphalt on site initially. And my recommendation is that we put a note in that site in our system so that in a couple of years, if we were to get complaints or, people complaining about, people parking on adjacent properties for events at a hotel, we could then follow back up with them and implement and ask them to do the additional parking as part of this approval. So that's something that maybe is not a normal approach, and I'm just offering that up for consideration. One thing I also wanted to point out that we don't really have control over, but it does impact this project, is that MDOT controls Michigan Avenue, and there is a parking island just outside of the site. There is a request by MDOT for this project to pay for the modification of that island to accommodate some additional stacking on Michigan Avenue. We've had some conversations with MDOT in an effort to see if that could be delayed until after the building was up to kind of see what the true impact is. So far, I've been unsuccessful in kind of, you know, waylaying that. So it would mean that some of that would need some modifications so far, but we don't have that final, direction from them. And that scope would be implemented as part of this project, the construction project. One thing that you probably would, I don't know if you've noticed, they are implementing solar panels. They're covering areas of the parking lot. If you look at the site plan, and I kind of defer to these guys, they can maybe point those out a little bit better. But, so that's something that we haven't seen in town yet. And so that would just be something to make sure you pay attention to. Trying to think, I'm trying to point out all of the kind of odd things, but do you want if you want like a global perspective of the project, I would invite Andrew Rossell is the engineer from AR Engineering. Maybe that would make more sense to have you come up and provide a little bit of.
Sure.
Yeah.
What about stacking? You're talking about that island.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. So, what they call stacking is, when cars are waiting in a line, it's the length of area that maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 cars take up.
Okay.
And Andrew can probably give the real definition there, but yeah, so they're expecting more cars needing to wait to turn into that hotel drive than had previously been needed. And so they're trying to make sure that people aren't waiting in the drive lane. They want to pull that into more of a turn lane there.
Okay,
So
that makes sense.
it would probably be good if you could point to a few things instead of me describing.
I'll try to figure out a place that I can put these that everyone can see.
And I'm so sorry, but would you mind stepping up to the microphone? Okay.
We can talk about certain things, but, good evening. My name is Andrew Rossell with AR Engineering, like Marcia said, and we also have Savinder, and Joey. So Savinder is the owner and, Joey is, with the solar company. So we're happy to answer any questions. I know this is an introductory meeting, but, you just tell us how much information you want at this time. And we can repeat it at the public hearing as well for whatever you'd like. As Marcia mentioned, we're working on approximately 17,600 square foot footprint Marriott hotel. It's pretty nice. I'm sure you've seen all the newer hotels. They're all very nice. It's got 101 rooms. It's got a indoor pool, a little breakfast area that converts into a bar at night, not like, like just your easy bar to go down to. Conference rooms and an outdoor patio. We have 110 parking spaces on site, with 11 in the future, allocated to future or banked parking, like we call it. And then, like Marcia indicated, several, and I can flip to that page. I'm not sure if you have it because I'm just a fill-in tonight. So I'm not sure if you have the actual solar layout,
I think it is.
the canopy layout.
We have it on here.
So it kind of delineates where those solar areas are with I guess we'll call it a canopy over it. I'm not sure if you've seen those anywhere. Yep, and out west, I mean, they've had them for quite a few years, which is good because it provides shade in the summer and like on the day to day,
provides shelter from the snow. So if you have any questions about those, we'll bring up the solar expert on that. Like Marcia had mentioned, we have been reviewing the site plan with MDOT and gone through impact assessment, traffic impact assessment with them because of their standard lengths of the queue lanes, like we were talking about, that left turn in. So they want more stacking there because of their standard, not necessarily how many cars are turning in here, but their standard is a certain distance. And so they want to provide that, which it's their road. So we're going to work with them on that. The main thing from the city standpoint is that island, that median island that's there now would get modified a little bit.
Reduced.
Reduced. And then when I say a little bit, I'm talking like, not substantial, like a few feet on the south side and back a ways, just to provide about another 50 feet. But you're probably not even gonna notice the difference in that. The stormwater, we've been working with the city on, and there's more reviews or more back and forth, I guess. But we provided about 9,300 cubic feet of underground stormwater storage, which is significantly more than what's out there now. And so we're addressing the stormwater concern. I guess that's kind of a broad overview of it. I can bore you to death and go through these plans in detail if you'd like, but maybe if we want to open it up to any questions that you might have or comments. And we'll continue to work with Mark and the staff to work through some of the details of it.
Conference rooms, how many conference rooms and how big are they and how many people?
Savinder, do you want to come up? You're more in tune. Oh, relating to the parking. So
And you have a big group come in for a conference, you know where to find.
So speaking with the hotel, because those meetings or conferences would be during the day, whereas most, probably 80% of the rooms are unoccupied during the day unless they're extended stay. So the basis from really any hotel chain is that if you have conference rooms or meeting rooms that that most of your customers have left for the day.
So we're not talking like ballrooms that would be suitable for weddings or
Yeah,
large conferences?
These are smaller rooms. Why Savinder's speaking to that?
I'm Savinder. Good evening. So just to let you know.
I'm sorry, Savinder, what is your last name as well?
Singh,
Thank you.
Savinder Singh. Hi. Yeah, thank you. I've been part of this community for 5 years. Just to let you guys know, we own the Amsterdam dispensary close to the casino. And we also have a grow facility in Marengo. And we recently bought Marshall Lanes from Bob Hutchinson. And we anticipate putting a nice Spring Hills there. As far as the conference room is concerned, that's more of a requirement of the franchise per se. It's hardly used, we don't, we have a very finite parcel to some acres. So mostly it's gonna be just the hotel rooms, And I could have put 25 more rooms there, but I just want to keep it, for the small township, make sure that it's amicable. And it should not be a concern because as Andrew said, if there is a meeting, it's during the day and most of the guests are not in the hotel rooms during the day. Same goes for for the stacking and all that. I have had a personal tiff with MDOT, just to let you know. I don't know if you guys know, the Amsterdam dispensary is going to be demolished in our next few months because of the eminent domain, because of the Ford project. So I've had no luck with MDOT. But for this particular project, the way it is, the island right now, the 4 cars can turn. But MDOT is MDOT, right? In their over exuberance or over engineering or whatever you want to call it, they want it to have 2 more cars in the back. What are the chances that 6 people are turning into a small hotel? But that's how MDOT is. They made me do a deceleration lane for the dispensary. We had to spend $100,000. So go figure, you know. So that's in the nutshell. If you have any questions about the solar, I will just let you know that even though if Joey would like to join me, the reason I'm putting the solar because we want to make it like a green hotel, quote unquote, friendly. And it does a dual purpose. So there's a less load on the electric grid. And it's also helps in with the sun and the snow, which is, very hard and, it helps basically. And I have a good relationship with Solar Mounts. They are a local company, if you guys are aware. They're on Woolley Road. And the way they do carports, they have them installed all over the country. They're very tastefully done. Like, yeah. For example, I don't know if any of you have ever been to University of Michigan State, in the parking lot, you see them, those are like very basic. These are more, if you want to call it, it has more aesthetics to match Marriott, let's just put it that way. So that's all I have. If you have any further questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Commissioner Banfield?
So this may be for Marcia to follow up, but because we don't include solar roof structures in the ordinance, these have to be considered as structures with a roof. And in fact, if structures with roofs need to have setback based on our ordinance. So obviously they could go to ZBA and do this, or you can modify, come back to us with a modification, but we can't very well in a month, we can't very well approve structures out in the parking lot that don't have any setbacks, You see what I mean? And screening. I mean, we don't put structures out there without some sort of screening. So, well.
And Mr. Singh, we're not trying to jam you up on here. We want to make sure,
That's why I didn't ask.
yeah, we want to make sure that we're in compliance.
Yeah. Is there,
What we need to do is we need a definition. Chances are, when we're stuck like that, we go to the city attorney and say, review this, see how it fits the ordinance. If it doesn't, and this is a great idea, by the way, MSU is benefiting large.
Yes.
They're almost ready to take down
And-
one of their power.
And it's probably time that we do have something,
That's exactly
Yeah.
right.
because this is going to become more common.
Can't ask the planning
Yeah.
commission to-
yeah, and my apologies, I was not looking at this from that perspective.
All right, so that's just one thing.
Okay, so,
So speaking to the setbacks, I mean, all of those are shown within or outside of the setback. So we can work with, I guess, if you guys are comfortable, we can work with Marcia on it and go through that in more.
Marcia needs to work with the attorney to make sure that this is written, because we don't make laws. All we do is make sure that everybody follows the ordinance.
so I will, sorry, I'm just cozying up on you here. So I will make sure that I confirm the interpretation of, these solar panel, assemblies as accessory buildings on that site. It looks to me that if that is the case, I guess my question would be then if Andrew and I can, if we get that confirmation and Andrew and I can work together to make sure that they're within the boundaries of the setbacks, then we could still have a contingent approval maybe at the next meeting.
Yeah.
So I'll try to follow back up before the next meeting with any findings that,
Especially if it's a verbiage thing, just a verbiage thing.
yeah, okay. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
all right.
Anything else?
You know.
I'll stay up here.
Yeah, there may be a bit of a list.
It's okay.
So we don't often have a preliminary plan pulled together that nice. Good job. I'm just gonna ask the question, you are aware that because of the size that it requires also a licensed landscape architect to seal the drawings?
Yeah, our final construct and that was a question that was brought up, so I think we may have, forgive me if we did this we did the A1CU down there. I know that some of you were on the board when we did that, but I think that we realized that during that process, but the plans will be signed and sealed prior to the next submission. And right now for the landscape plan, that just shows the
Intent.
quantity. But yes, we will have a landscape architect.
Okay, because that gives them an opportunity to read the ordinance, first of all, and make the changes, and I won't go through all the changes that have to be made because that's their job, so. By the time it comes in and your seal's on it, and their seal's on it, it should have those corrections. We'll get a chance to see that. I think one of the things that usually the engineers do is they give us the zoning on either side. If it's not the same, and you don't have the same zoning on at the northeast corner.
Yeah, we can add those to the.
Because if you did, then you have two zones that are not compatible. And I think one of the requirements for residential is that side needs to be screened. And the existing plant material out there, the existing trees out there will not be adequate for screening, of course, because most of them will be gone. Any of the ones that would be on your side.
Yeah, we just list it in that table, but we can add it to the actual plan.
So if there is,
I was just gonna have him.
Just because the recording.
so Andrew, yeah, speaking. Please. So that would require screening along the east side of the parking lot. And the city offers several options for that. Many options, not just plant material.
Right, yeah, fence or
Yeah.
other type, yeah.
Usually we're not that concerned with what's to the north on the other side of the city street, which is also zoned multi-family, and there's no screening at the end of that parking lot. One of the things that the hospital has always done is always considered, because our hospital here and with the parking, headlights go into the houses, into the housing areas, the residential areas. And so for that, they've always provided a short shrub or short screen.
A hedge.
Yeah, very, 3 foot is enough for the cars. Like I said, if you have a landscape architect involved, I'm sure that they'll probably come up with that. more engineering related. We weren't offered any details on the water storage area.
Yeah, we're still.
That was your
working.
request also by staff. Marguerite was very happy to see it. It looks like the capacity makes sense, but she did ask for additional information and we will be working through that.
One of the reasons that we haven't used them before, and I'm just also, as a landscape architect, we seldom use those because of cleaning.
Mhm.
They work fine for a certain amount of time, but anything that's in the parking lot ends up in there. And eventually, as in most drain fields, be a problem. So, you know, to rely on that solely to hold stormwater, especially in the winter, when the pipes could be frozen, or the inlets could be frozen and then thawing, you know, where's the water go? And that's a big question. So if you've got an answer for that, or your designer of your water system has an answer, I would have that ready.
Okay, yeah, we can address that more, but I guess we'll work with Marguerite on the main concern that we have right now is if the approach is acceptable to the city. And as far as the underground, I don't even know how many we put in the ground over the years. And so what we like to do is do an isolator row, we call it. So that's where it's wrapped in fabric. So then they're easily to get in by a manhole in the end of it and clean that first row. And that's your treatment cell so that it can run, they're easily able to run a vac down that and jet that out and then suck the sediment out. But
And I think that has to be written in agreement.
So,
The city requires that. on a
And we-
regular basis.
and we can talk about that. I was going to, just because I know that Andrew's kind of stepping in for the person who was actually working on the project tonight. And I know I had been involved in the review previously, but you were wondering about kind of additional capacity and where that was tying to for overflow and stuff. And there will be. I don't know.
Yeah, great.
But there is an existing swale
Yeah.
that is over by the fire department.
Yes.
And currently, all of the existing site water runs to that swale.
Right.
We discussed that there would be a agreement, you know, between the city, because we are the owner of that property, the owner of that swale, this happens to be, right? That, because it exists that way, that they can continue, he's gonna run the capacity of that swale to make sure that it still has capacity that would be required for their overflow. So that was preliminarily discussed and those details would have to be confirmed. But that was what Marguerite was talking with them.
So one of the reasons that we was required on-site detention of the water for it disperses. We have wonderful soils and so the water goes away pretty quickly, fortunately. But one of the reasons is so that it will operate in wintertime. These systems work wonderful in the southwest or someplace that doesn't have troughs. Up here, I'm not so sure, but that's what we were relying on you and your. So make sure that the information you bring will support that.
Yeah, and reviewing the geotech for that, I think we're at like 3 and 6 inches per hour for the infiltration, the perk rate, which is pretty good. And at the depth of that, so 5 to 6 feet down, it can still drain in the winter time because of the depth and the
Below frost.
below frost. So
Gotta get it down there.
yeah, exactly.
So it's the only thing that I was concerned about, and I can understand why those islands don't have plant material in them, is because they're on top.
And we'll be rearranging that bed under there to be more under the drives because of
plantings, and if the solar, the solar ports are installed, then they have foundations that we'll need to account for.
You guys talk about the possibility that the 11 spaces that you're gonna hold on could actually be a retention area.
We did not. We did not, but what I had expressed was the intent was that if we can get away without having to pave them and could provide the additional green space for non-pervious,
Why couldn't they be a retention area?
I mean, it could be, as long as it's available to be paved if needed. That's the caveat,
Well, the site plan's gonna approve,
right?
and the site plan's approved, it's approving it without those 11 spaces.
Correct.
Or you can have the 11 spaces indicated on here that they be built later.
That, I think that was the intent, is that they're dashed in there as an area that is like future parking. With the caveat that it's not implemented right away, and it may never be if it doesn't need to be.
Where is that area?
It's right in here. I don't know what sheet you're looking at, but on C2 it shows it best. It's right up along the east side of the hotel, right along this green space.
The
So
different graphics you have there. Okay.
So they're kind of dashed lines along the sidewalk. So those 11 spaces would be adjacent to the building on the east side, north of kind of that jog out.
Those feel like the prime spaces.
Why wouldn't they be in the farthest away from the hotel?
Yeah, I'm curious about that too.
That is a great question. I will take that back to our designer.
By the way, Andrew, you're doing it.
That one, I can't answer that one. Marcia told us to put it there.
No.
No, I'm just kidding.
No.
I'm not getting her.
Confused, Mark.
I know who put them there and.
We have a long history with MDOT, and let's just say we have a long history with MDOT. And,
Understood and
not many cities are cut right down through the middle with MDOT. That's gonna be the most awkward left-hand turn. And I was out there today, I was out there at like 3 o'clock, not even at 5. Michigan Avenue is now, double lane, let alone what's gonna be coming on the other side. I'm not so sure, and I don't work for MDOT, but I do involve myself with this all the time. I'm not so sure we wouldn't need a light there. Left-hand turn light, nothing else. I mean, first of all, you're not gonna be able to make a left-hand turn out of this site. When you come out of that site, you can only turn right.
Right, that's,
Even though right now, you can go right straight across. There's nothing that says you can't go straight across.
yeah, and we'll be installing, you can see what we call a pork chop, but I mean,
I'm talking about the people that don't
yeah,
look at signs.
adhere, yeah. Or look at them and disobey them, yeah.
So it's, I'm just thinking of that. We're involved with the health and safety and welfare of the people on the street also in the city. And granted, there may not be 6 cars stacked up there, make a left-hand turn. But it just looks to me like a potential. And the other thing that becomes is a U-turn. No matter what sign you put up, it will be a U-turn. So I don't know if of anybody, I would not want another light on Michigan Avenue. If it's busy at 5 o'clock and in the morning and so forth, can't have people being broadside out.
Yeah.
So
We'll
that's you're dealing directly with the DOT.
Yes, yeah.
Don't have to get involved with it. I think that's it.
Commissioner Stewart, did you have a question?
Yeah, curious, will charging stations be included at all in this?
Thank you.
I had that question too.
So we've designated 4 spaces on the south end as EV, to keep up with the times, and thank you for bringing that up.
Yep.
That was part of my,
Having the solar out back made me thought it would be somewhere on property, which is
yeah, you
great.
can't have solar in that, then
Yeah.
not have
That's might be a miss.
EV.
This one's probably more for Marcia, but sidewalk improvements along Michigan Avenue, what we're seeing down the road, those requirements. I echo Commissioner Banfield's concerns with safety. Alongside that too, I want to make sure that the space is there for walkability, for bikeability. So I don't know what's in the plan and if that can be built in a strategic way, so we're doing this correctly.
So maybe you can take them through the walkability of the site, maybe front to back, or maybe, I guess that could be a question, but outside of the site, you know, if you're talking along Michigan Avenue, that would not really be improved or changed as part of this project. They're maintaining the sidewalk kind of as, I mean, maybe it's slightly regraded as part of their scope, right? But that condition with the sidewalk, you know, in its current path really remains. And a larger restructuring of those paths along Michigan Avenue would be part of an MDOT
Okay.
project.
Yeah, I think most of my comments, my ideas, my questions are probably more MDOT related. I'm thinking about the tournaments at the athletic fields. I'm thinking about the use of that space. I'm thinking about safe passage across Michigan Avenue.
And
There's a lot of
those-
concerns in that it's not the developer's responsibility,
Yep,
but it is our responsibility to be keeping an eye on. So
yep.
anything we can do to amplify that, please let us know.
Okay, since you said to amplify it, I'm just going to put a shout out there that we have MDOT doing a traffic calming project from the Fountain East. And there's an open house coming up in a couple of weeks, so I think it's on the 16th. So if you guys are available and interested, I'd recommend going to that. I'm
Good.
sorry, that was a deviation. But I would like Andrew to maybe point out sidewalks north to south through this site. And maybe there's an opportunity if we need to add any or, you know, play the connect the dots for pedestrians, right?
Yeah, there's really, I mean, the building is, you know, flanked with sidewalks all the way around. There is sidewalks across the frontage along the building. Obviously, it's all parking lot here, but then we do have a sidewalk on Arms as well.
MDOT would probably never allow anybody to walk across Michigan Avenue, would they? Without a light.
Well, people do it.
I know they do. They're gonna do it even more.
And they've gotten hit too.
Okay, so this is where I get in trouble. We will have a conversation about that stretch of Michigan Avenue, maybe after the meeting, but there, just rest assured that it is on a lot of people's minds.
Just a general statement about the stacking. I mean, I think it will help to improve the safety of that space. Yes, it's tough to lose a bit of that island, but I also think there's plenty of island space the further west we go. That'd be great for the city, for others to keep an eye on. So shave a little there for safety, and let's add a little more beautiful landscape design further west we go. I thought I'd get like a twinkle in his eye.
So I'm just gonna, I mean, before we get too hung up on the island, that's really not something that we have any control over. I really appreciate the comments about it, but it's just, we really, as much as we can make our, you know, our wishes known, MDOT is really gonna be the controlling factor of that. Not yet.
They have more to say.
Is MDOT watching this?
No, not that I know of, maybe.
So sorry, she's trying to keep us in line and we just won't do it.
comments. I think that the plan set is great. Appreciate the time that went into it. I think it's really cool to see solar incorporated in this, and I think that'd be a cool precedent set. Stormwater collection this is a new space for me. I haven't seen that before, so I'm just curious to hear how the discussion goes on that front. And yeah, I think it's awesome that we can have a 4-story structure like this that can bring people to town and help our tax base with funding other programs. So this is awesome.
Thank you.
What about snow storage?
Snow storage, we don't have snow here.
Yeah.
So typically the snow storage, like in any other parking lot, yeah, if they're not able to stack it in the green space, then they would come in and pull it off.
There's not near enough green space.
Oh, yeah.
Plus it's curved.
Yeah.
I guess it might be for the owner too. There should be a comment in there regarding snow storage. Your final proposal.
Okay.
And it should be on it doesn't have to be on the landscape plan, it can be on one of your drawings, but. We usually put, snow storage to a certain, depth and then, or a certain event. After a certain event, it's removed from the site, and that's a requirement. That can be a requirement that's built into the final proposal.
Any other questions? Thank you so much, gentlemen. Unless you have anything else?
No,
Okay.
just want to make.
Andrew's like, please, no more.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have discussing the East Prospect vacation. Thank you.
Good job.
And we look forward to seeing the final project. We really are.
Just want to thank the board again. I hope you guys are as excited as we are to bring a nice hotel to this township. And this was recommended by Jim Durian. My initial, again with the MDOT, initially I was putting the hotel right next to the Amsterdam dispensary, but now they've taken my land, so I had to shift my plans. And I reached out to Jim, and he advised me to look into this project, so thank you so much.
It looks like it'll be a lovely improvement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The bowling alley though.
They were in there. We got one day.
So, the East Prospect vacation, and it is not a vacation.
No, no. So just in very basic terms, we don't do a lot of these. I think it's been several years since the city had a vacation. But a vacation is
I think
the,
2022 was the last time.
yeah, and I don't know the street name or whatever, but, and I think it had been years before that. And so, we're going through this, we had to come up with some forms and those kind of things just to kind of, find our way, navigate through this again. But vacation of a street, is really what you do is the area of the street, the right of way is turned over from the city to the owners of the properties on either side of that. And what's happening now is Oaklawn has requested the vacation of, and I'm sorry, the street name, I cannot.
Prospect.
Thank you, Prospect, which is the street on the north side of the hospital. They have parking immediately adjacent to that on the north side, and then the emergency room is on the south side of that. And so the length of Prospect, and I can have you come up and talk about that, but their intent their intent is to make way for the expansion of the emergency department. Which, like I said, is located on the north side. That is not happening as part of this vacation. So it's a separate future action. Okay, so this action is purely the vacation of that street, turning it from public property to private property. There are utilities in that right of way that would need to be dealt with through easements. So some legal requirements that would then, we'd still need to maintain access to it, or there might even be some questions about, would we allow building on top of the water main that is running there? Those are questions that we need to kind of sort out. And there are also things that could be sorted out as part of a future project. So we have, right now, we're presenting this for consideration. We're looking for some feedback.
I don't think we have the authority. According to the ordinance, this is strictly a council
So,
issue. So I'm really
Did-
confused about why it's even before us.
and I think, so this was presented to council as a preliminary, hey, would you consider this, right? And they asked if the planning commission would please review it and provide input. So it's really coming from council that they're asking for your expertise to provide some insight. You could look at it that way. Your decision may not be binding, right? But it is a recommendation.
I mean, the ordinance is pretty clear that this is council's domain.
It's up to you whether or not, as a chair, it's up to you whether or not you want to discuss. If you want to discuss it, then we don't need a motion to discuss.
Yeah, I'm happy to have Mr. DeGraw and Mr. Beeg make a presentation, but I think it's more appropriately brought before council. I mean, we can certainly discuss it. I don't think that what we say has any weight, given the authority in the ordinance it's given specifically to council for this vacation. Mr. Mayor?
So the ask from council is because you are an advisory board to council.
Okay.
We felt you were better positioned with your expertise and working with the departments to investigate the questions of utilities, the questions of easements, the questions of potential future use, even though that's not on the table. And in your advisory committee capacity is what we were hoping you would make a recommendation.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Banfield?
I would speak historically, but I'd rather hear either Mr. DeGraw or whoever give a suggestion as to why it's needed.
I'm here only to help explain, and I have the same trepidation. The charter very clearly says that the council shall establish and vacate streets. The ordinance, the hospital campus ordinance overlay district clearly says it's the council's duty. But I think to understand this, I should first say, Madam Chairwoman, I congratulate you on your reelection and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Ronald J. DeGraw. I have an office at 203 East Michigan Avenue. I'm an attorney. I've represented the hospital for the last 60 years. I'm here by default. We contacted the city on October 4th and asked to vacate that portion of East Mansion Street lying between Madison and High. Now, if you're all familiar, East Prospect Street runs into Division and then jogs up 70 feet, proceeds 2 blocks, and jogs down again on High Street, that's 70 feet. The street is primarily used by hospital patients, hospital visitors, and hospital employees. Most people avoid it because of the jogs in the street. I've given you a copy of what we sent the city. I see the city didn't inform you of a whole lot, so I wanted you to have the complete story. The purpose of the vacating is to make room for the emergency room expansion. And in order to really understand the hospital's position, you have to understand the history of the hospital. When my wife Jane and I came here 66 years ago, Oaklawn was probably 4 years old. It was built in the middle of the block, and it had expansive lawns and shade trees. And it was named, pardon?
In a big oak tree.
Yeah, very big. And so it was appropriately named. Since then, with modern conveniences, inventions, and progress in the treatment of patient care, it's slowly expanded out to the point where it probably would be more appropriately named curbside. There is no lawn except on the setbacks. And well, it's really, their position now is like trying to, their position now is really like trying to shove 10 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound bag. It's just really bad. The hospital originally had a 600 square foot emergency. There were 2 beds side by side with a curtain between them. And in one corner, there was really a basement or floor sink. And the janitors would dump their wastewater into that sink and wash out their mops. By the year 1990, the ER was 6,402 square feet. And at that time, they expanded it by another 2,000 square feet. So it was up to 8,000. Now they need probably 11 or 12,000 square feet, because not only the increase in patient volume, but the anticipated increase from the Blue Oval plant. We've got 1,700 workers and their family members, many of whom will probably be living in the Marshall area. When Oaklawn had that 2-bed facility, it was serviced by 6 local physicians. That's all the physicians that were in town, 6. And they managed it on a rotating basis. And most usually, if it was a late night call, the advice was 2 aspirins and call me in the morning. That now has seen a considerable change. The patient load in 2000 was 11,101. The patient load in 2024 was 20,446. In addition to that, they had opened the Express Care on West Michigan Avenue, and they had 8,547 lesser emergencies treated at that facility. The ER cannot be located off of the hospital campus. It needs the facilities of X-ray, MRI, CAT scan, nuclear medicine, X-ray, and the operating rooms. So it has to be on the main campus. If you look on page 4 of the materials we distributed, there's 15 off-campus facilities that Oaklawn has struggled to create because they didn't have the room for them on the campus itself. And that increases costs to you. And it's a situation that they have to put up with, but it is inconvenient. The reason for the cramping of the hospital on its present site is, as I explained, the ER has increased from 600 square feet to now 8,402 feet. The lab, when we came to town, was one microscope and a centrifuge in a closet almost. Now we've got several microscopes and 15 additional pieces of equipment that require hundreds of square feet of space. In addition, X-ray was one X-ray machine. We now have 5 X-ray machines, an MRI, a PET scan, 2 ultrasounds, nuclear medicine, X-ray. All of that just takes more and more space, and there's a limited amount at that site. The operating facilities was 1 operating room. Now there are 7 operating rooms. And Oaklawn had the first robotic operating arm, Da Vinci, in the state of Michigan. The medical staff was 6 physicians, and their offices were sprinkled out around the hospital, in homes mostly. The current staff is 190 physicians and 98 allied health professionals. Many of those offices are on site, and it would be most convenient if they were all on site because they would have the immediate access to the hospital facilities. We've run out of space. And the alternative, if the hospital doesn't continue to improve and acquire the most up-to-date equipment, is going to be the same that happened to Albion, the same that happened to 3 hospitals in Battle Creek, Mason, and I can go on. There are 9 hospitals within an hour's drive of Marshall that have closed in the last several years. It's either keep up, expand, or close. And Oaklawn has, during my tenure in town, tried to expand to the east. And the city has said High Street should not be violated. Oaklawn owns 2 houses on High Street. And its alternative here is to tear those houses down, come to the Planning Commission, and ask to rezone the property so that they can expand the ER onto High Street. That's not a good choice, in my opinion. The hospital tried to expand to the south, and they tried to buy what is now the Frank Center for the Arts. They offered the city $700,000 for that building. And the city sold it to Tom Frank's organization for $155,000, which was a $500,000 hit to the taxpayers. But it cut off Oaklawn's expansion to the south. Oaklawn at one time owned the parking lot on the corners, the southeast corner of Madison and Mansion. But the city, in a trade arrangement, obtained ownership of that lot. The Oaklawn can expand to the west. They bought Kemp's Funeral Home, but they're cut off again. Madison is a through street and goes up to the high school and the athletic part. So they can't go east, they can't go west, they can't go south. There's only one way for them to go, and that's north into Prospect. The ordinance really foretold this problem. If you look at the hospital campus overlay district 3.1.16, Section A, purpose number 3, expansion of healthcare and supporting issues within the hospital campus overlay district is anticipated. They anticipate the increase as healthcare services and related uses continue to expand. Street closures may also be a component of the district, subject to city council approval. The HCO provides the regulatory framework to permit expansion of healthcare and supporting uses. Ventura Way 2 years ago was vacated. And I don't think the Planning Commission had anything to do with it. And it was accomplished in about 2.5 months. We've been 3 months now, and we're before the Planning Commission. The alternative here is tear down 2 houses and come back and ask for rezoning, or to close a very little used street, and the hospital would then have access not only to the street property, but the parking lot north of it, and then there's a large vacant space behind. That would probably take care of the hospital's expansion for the next 10 years, and at which time we probably won't have to worry about it. But at this point, we need a solution if we're going to keep the hospital. If we don't expand, we don't improve, and we drop behind, and we lose the ball game. And I hope that everybody here will go out and give the good word. I sent copies of what you have to the residents on the 2 blocks. There's, I think, 7 houses total. 2 of them are owned by the hospital. I've had no response. There's no one here to talk about it. I don't think there's any opposition to the proposition. But again, we need a solution if we're going to have a hospital. Thank you. "20 years ago, my voice would have been stronger."
I'd say it's still pretty strong.
Thanks. Are there any questions?
Anybody have any questions? Yeah. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, we're looking for a clarification as to what you believe this procedure is all about. Because again, in 2022, council vacated another street without it coming to
Right.
us. So you want us just to discuss
It was
and
an
send you,
undeveloped street that was mostly used as a driveway for a
But-
single business.
we're just wondering what you think the procedure here is. I mean, what, and Commissioner Banfield, if you want to just describe your question a little bit more clearly than I am.
Historically speaking, so I was, not to go back too far because everybody's got to get home, but I was born in the old house. That was the house before in 1950, it was the house before they built the hospital around it. So, and I've also lived in the Philippines for a short period of time, courtesy of the Navy. And I came all the way back, and now I live a block and a half away from where I was born. So Prospect Street, which is one of our intersections from where my wife and I live, has always been awkward, of course, because it's a perfect slowdown street, because you have to slow down and stop and yield and et cetera, to get across it. So that's, I would bring that up and say, that's not necessarily an argument that nobody uses it. I use it all the time. I mean, I use it because I live so close. And if I'm going to the south or to the east side of Marshall, I don't go down to Mansion, I go straight across. There are a lot of people who live on Madison and over on Division where I am, and that are coming down Prospect that do use it. So yeah, I think it is still used. Let me go back historically to the last time we had a public hearing that had to be moved to the county building. And that was the discussion of the expansion of the hospital. And I know that, that Mr. DeGraw was there at the time, speaking for the hospital at the time. That only took us a couple of years, didn't it, Ron? 2 or 3 years possibly?
It took us 3 years to get a Kmart too.
Yes, that's very true. And it was done professionally, and it was done over that period of time. Everybody got to speak, kind of like the Ford project. Everybody got to speak. If it wasn't big enough here, we moved over there. But everybody got to talk, and everybody got to bring it up. And it was truly the hospital overlay district was truly the result of coming up with that was the result of the compromise between the powers to be at the hospital at that time and the city and the planning commission and the council at the time. So together we came up with, I thought, which was a great solution for the time. The last thing we saw, just for a second, the last thing we saw here was an awning that was going to come out on the north side of the hospital. We approved that. That was approved to be built so that the ambulances didn't have to go down to the lower level. They could drop off at the upper level and people could drop off up there. Also, during the 2 years of discussion as to how to expand, we lost 5 houses on the north side. 2 of them historically correct, I guess. We lost 5 houses over there to put the parking lot in. For a person that designs parking lots for a living, that's probably one of the most beautiful parking lots, at least in a few counties. And it continues to be. The landscape architecture firm that did that was fantastic. So again, part of the compromise. It's not maybe as big as a parking lot was intended to be, but it handles it. But part of that discussion about having, buying that piece of land over there, having that piece of land developed, we were presented with a structure that was going to be over on that side that eventually, possibly, could be connected to the hospital with an overhead bridge or a bridge overhead if city council, or if city council is the one that makes a decision, if they felt that it was pertinent to keep Prospect open, that the expansion for Oakland Hospital could have happened over on that other side, still being connected so that nobody had to do anything except go down a hallway. If you've seen footprints of Sparrow Hospital where I'm involved, you can go down the hallway for half a mile before you run out of hallways. That was presented to us at the time as well. And I'm not sure that that's still an option or not, but, and what is, how do the fire trucks only have to go another block? I understand that. So it's not that big of a deal. Is part of the idea of having the right-of-way down through there preserved, would that be available for the fire trucks to be able to cut through if they needed to? Because we do that quite often.
There has to be approach to the emergency room from both the east and the west. So that we can work out that kind of an access.
Yeah.
The big problem is the setback into the street for enough room to build what you need for an ER.
Yeah.
Right now, there's 13 beds and there's a waiting room. And if you have 15 patients, that means that the ER doctor, and there's one on duty most of the time, has to treat the most critically ill patient. The other 12 patients, if they're lucky, so there's no more, are in beds waiting to be treated. And if there's more than 13, they're sitting out in the waiting room with the other people waiting to get to a bed. And what they hope to do is to add sufficient beds that they can afford another doctor and have 2 doctors on duty all the time, along with the nursing staff. But it has to be adjacent to the existing structure in order to take advantage of the other facilities.
So a bridge is out of the question
I think it is.
because
The
you're,
hospital, the architects are pushing it for direct passageway with the bridge, you're gonna go up and over and down.
Yeah.
Because the rest of the facility is on the first floor.
elevators. So planning commission deals with the health and welfare of the general public. And if the health and welfare of the general public is not gonna be altered by closing off a street, 1 block of it,
You
then,
know, it amazes me because, as I say, I wrote to the people on the street. I had no response whatsoever.
I did.
Pardon?
I did,
Did you?
from one of our neighbors. And, she's not here to speak for herself, but I did. She knew that I was on the planning commission and she just wanted to know if we'd heard about it. And we hadn't been introduced to it yet, so.
Well, I just conducted the introduction.
I'm definitely biased, but, and if any of you don't know, Ron is my business partner and I've represented the hospital as well. But I definitely think the health of the city also has to take into consideration whether or not we have sufficient emergency room doctors and beds. I mean, it certainly has to be a consideration.
If I may, a thing that struck close to home, and I was very thankful for Oak Lawn. My wife, we live at Mansion in Liberty. My wife fell in the garage and got a concussion, fractured skull, and we were able to get her into ER very quickly. Myself, being myself, the last time I went to ER, I walked down and got 6 stitches and was out of there in an hour. So I appreciate everything that you're saying, and I agree wholeheartedly with the plan. I just want to say that from a personal perspective.
Yeah. We completely agree. I mean, the viability of the hospital is critical to the city, to the future of the city, to, what we're doing now, what we want to do in the future. So, I mean, we're not trying to be contentious in this. We're just wanted to make sure that all aspects, again, of public safety, whether it was going to create any issues with the fire department or whatever reason, the police department, whether it was going to create any issues with the city infrastructure, that is in that area. We felt like this
I just feel like we need a site
body
plan
was
before we can,
suited to answer those questions.
but we almost need a site plan before we can really delve into that.
However, HCAD doesn't, the way we set the HCAD up was that the hospital would be allowed to make changes within the HCAD so that they didn't have to keep coming back or didn't have to go 2.5, 3 years to make a decision about expansion.
Mhm.
One of the reasons that we compromised on the HCAD also was the fact that at that time, Oakland said that if they needed to expand, they'd expand in that parking lot, not close off the street. So I don't know any of, this goes back almost 15 years. So I had black hair and some more. So again, I don't know what council needs us to say. I guess congratulations that you're the mayor and you get to make the final vote. But the discussion was long and hard over that period of time, and there were friends who, weren't friends anymore, and there were family members who weren't family members anymore. It was a very contentious issue, especially when it came to taking houses down.
I really think that the attitude towards the hospital has changed since that time. Back 15 years ago, we would have had people at the city commission meeting when it was on the agenda. We would have had people here. And it just, I don't know, maybe it's television, they all want to stay home, watch television. But there just doesn't seem to be the antagonism towards the hospital at this time. And the hospital is just, again, they're like the 10 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound bag. Just, there's nothing they can do at this point. They have 667 square feet of expansion there. That would be losing part of parking.
Well, that whole southwest expansion of the hospital happened, I mean, we lost a couple of the oak trees, if you remember. But that whole expansion happened at that time, and that's all the hospital needed at that time was that area, so forth. So, but, the fact that 15 years ago, people didn't use ER the way they do today has made a big change for hospital, right? But again, I don't know what.
We don't know what we're supposed to do here, Mr. Mayor.
The ask was to render an opinion of the impact of the request.
Speak up.
I was going to add comments too, that I really appreciate Mr. DeGraw's presentation and the need to expand the hospital. And I would say, although I'm retired from law enforcement, having ER at its maximum efficiency and capacity to accommodate all the people, but to accommodate law enforcement's needs coming in and out of there, it makes perfect sense. And given the historical hullabaloo that has gone on in the past, I mean, I lived here, I wasn't on council then, but going north is the path of least resistance. If you were to tear those two houses down, that's when we're gonna have Blue Oval 2.0 here, so.
I do think any change like this in this community is difficult for some. I do think it works towards a greater good and fills in a very important need. I mean, some of my concerns and just questions are just ensuring that public utilities are not impacted in a way that compromise their efficiency and their effectiveness. If there are loops that need to be there for certain reasons, I'm talking way out of my pay grade, but just making sure that our city engineers and experts are weighing in to ensure that there is no compromise to the residents in that area and to the community. I talked about walkability earlier, and I walk the street too. I like that little weird Prospect Street jag, or whatever you want to call it. But I just think that the benefits do outweigh the impact. So appreciate hearing this, seeing this, and learning more.
No. Yeah.
I agree basically with everything. We have a giant, massive factory being built. We're probably going to need more ER space. Unfortunately, accidents happen. And I avoid that part of East Prospect like the plague because I hate that it jumps up and down. And I'm fine with it being gone. However, I do resemble Commissioner Stewart's remarks about the utilities not being built on and being accessible. That is probably the only real concern I have.
If I may just prior conversation about the utilities, that was initial gut reaction to the request from the engineer perspective, right? And, a lot of it is just kind of hypothetical at this point. We really have to kind of wait to see what they want to do with the proposed structure. And I think that there's probably a lot of communication that would happen, or we could require our inclusion in some of those conversations about if there is a loop, for the water system, that would have to be maintained as part of the project, right? Like, I think that our engineering staff can put a little more investigation into maybe part of the vacation. And here I'm kind of shooting from the hip a little bit, but that, honestly, that was our engineering perspective, was the only concern that was really brought up initially, was making sure the looping was maintained. And, do we want to allow a building over a loop. So
That's an engineering.
that's an
question.
engineering question.
Can architects look at that at all?
No, we have not. Initially, we had.
Yeah, speak.
This is Greg Beeg.
Sorry, you should probably come up, sorry.
My name is Greg Beeg and I live at 329 East Prospect, so I'm very familiar with the street. We initially had an engineer come in. We were ready to move forward and COVID hit. And at that point in time, it was about an $8 to $8.5 million project. COVID came, hit, and all of a sudden the project went up 40 to 50% in cost. Things have stabilized, but we were only able to expand about 672 feet, and because of some of the restrictions. Obviously, this was before the Ford plant and, you know, all the plans to expand in the community, the housing and things of that nature. So, but to answer your question, no, we have not had any enhancements or review or even any really architectural design discussions pertaining to how it would now look.
The minor detail with the entrance and the exits to the parking lot on the north side have come out on Prospect.
Mhm.
So in the future, if you take the center of that, then they'll actually come out, that piece of
Mhm.
Prospect will be part of the enter and exit to
Yep.
do you see do you envision a structure that would go into the parking lot?
No, I do not see it going that far.
Because I was gonna say
Yeah.
that, because then you're dealing with available
A
parking.
parking space, no.
You're already increasing the need for parking,
Mhm.
you know, by adding to the expansion of the hospital. So you're not increasing the parking, but I think that parking lot, I don't know that that parking lot is ever 100%, is it? Is that over on the north side?
Yes, it is. It's
Maxed out.
filled. Yep.
Okay. Because they park on Division Street, which they probably park on Prospect Street too.
Mhm. They do.
Yes.
We're trying to avoid that.
Yeah.
The increased growth and increased needs for parking, and I know it's something to be discussed probably at a later date, but what are those creative solutions?
Mhm.
And doing that early on in tandem with the city to work for the benefit of the downtown, similar to the parking garage now, which I'm a fan of. Also curious about going up. I think Marshall tends to be scared of going up, and be curious to learn more about within the hospital overlay district, what flexibility is there. Again, I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer. There are probably.
Yeah, I can't speak how much, I know on the southwest corner, there is the capacity up over that OR area to go up. I think it was
designed for.
It was designed
additional
for
floors.
two more or I guess it's one more level.
That is a plus utilities.
Possibility, yeah, that area. The parking structure, it's a whole different discussion. That is at capacity because it went through two phases and that's kind of where it's at right now. That it is what it is and it won't be going to the fifth level.
We call the city parking lot over there, we call that the Ron DeGraw parking lot, quite frankly.
That's about my only claim to fame.
Yeah, exactly.
I will tell you this, when I first moved to town here 11 years ago, my significant other and I, we pulled in and we looked at this parking structure. Because when I interviewed, I was on the west side by the Ricketson parking lot. So I didn't really pay attention to the parking structure and what it was. We pulled in, we saw this thing and it looked, so I was born and raised in Saginaw. It looked like a warehouse with all the windows knocked out.
Exactly.
And she goes, "What did you get us into?"
Yeah.
And I said, so I drove in there. I said, "Man, this is a first parking structure that is beautiful. Most of them are just concrete pillars and, you know, they're just that standard concrete. But this thing had brick on it. It was actually very, very beautiful. So it really blends in well with the community in the downtown area."
Unitized construction, walls went in single pieces.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it's the hamster cage in East Lansing and then this one for me as far as order of parking garages.
Hey, we are not putting solar panels on the roof of the hospital because there's no more room up there with all the HVAC systems and air handling units. And we won't be putting anything on the roof of the parking structure either, because that is also filled with employees and visitors. All righty, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Did you get what you want, what you needed? Or do you want us to?
Mr. Mayor.
I was, yeah, I was, so if we were to summarize the conversation in a generic way, general support would be given for the
I would
city
say as long,
council.
I would say as long as it doesn't encroach within the existing parking lot. Because if it does, then, you know, you're causing more damage. That's gotta be 70 or 80 feet, 80, maybe.
I walked it off. Yeah.
About 80.
It's just short of 100 feet.
Yeah.
From the backside, from the brick of the building to the opposite side.
And then it allows you to go east and west, you know, whatever. But you still gotta be able to get in and out of that parking lot without going out on Mansion at a different space, and you can't go through the hill over on, yeah.
So the architect in me is coming out right now, but I would just maybe make a recommendation those are the kind of design questions that would need to be resolved before a proposal for expansion would be, considered, right? So they would need to figure out, parking allocation and all that kind of stuff as part of that
And the utility issue.
issues.
Just because there's gonna be a public hearing, right, Mr. Mayor? There will probably be a public hearing. Before that, I would have the city's attorney review the HCOD and just make sure that there's a strong possibility that they don't need a lot of.
Well, I will say, I mean, what we were looking for was technical guidance.
Okay.
And if that's not coming from this board, I guess it'll have to come from.
The staff.
city department.
From engineering, yeah.
I think it's difficult to give technical guidance on the vacation of a street because it's just closing a road at this point. So without a site plan, so there's really no technical guidance we can give. It's kind of, really, council has to make the decision to close or not close, and then we need a site plan. I mean, and that's where the technical expertise comes in.
However, that's where I'm thinking that the site plan won't have to come to the planning commission because of
Yeah,
HCOD, so.
Correct.
So,
We anticipate that.
so,
We've been taking notes.
but I guess I'm not sure if there really would be a site plan as part of the vacation.
Well, but we
For
don't.
you guys.
We don't get it.
We don't
because-
get it
Because of the
here.
overlay district.
Okay.
You're not affecting housing, you're not
Right.
affecting the existing city parking lot. You're not changing anything up there as long as you stay within that boundary, and
Right.
that's what it was set up for.
And that's what they're asking to do
Yeah.
is they would be within that boundary.
Okay.
And the vacation of that street is, I think, addressed in the overlay district.
I'm sure they can contemplate Madison or Mansion or High Street.
We did.
That only leaves one street to be closed.
That was discussed, if you remember, is closing Mansion and having.
Difficulty remembering what I had for breakfast.
Yeah. And, you know, the question at that time was, making sure that the ambulances could get around, you know, at that time. But this having two entrances for the ambulances, wow. That's probably a good thing. We walk over. when
So we were not helpful at all, I guess.
Wasn't gonna say that a lot.
I'm so sorry. We're not supposed to be joking around.
No. I did not say that.
She's smiling.
So So just to summarize, to make sure that I'm aware of, and we capture this correctly. So the intent is to kind of push it back to staff at this point to collect some additional information, whatever's
I think
needed.
it's got to go to council.
Well, to collect any additional information that we think is needed prior to city council.
Council needs technical guidance. on
Yeah,
this, but
so-
When it comes to utilities, when it comes to public safety, when it comes to city engineering, we are not equipped to make those, to have the background to make those decisions.
So, yep,
And trust me, I don't have to tell Ron DeGraw this, but the city attorney just putting a blessing on it, the fact that it is included, that all those things are included. So that if you do have a public hearing that ends up over in the county building for some reason, that you've got the answers for that. Ron's gonna have the answers, but you know, the city's gotta have its own answers, right?
Well, I really prefer that we meet with the city engineers before the council.
Yeah.
Of course.
yeah.
Those things are all worked out. So far, I have not been successful in that, but I'm looking forward.
And we can, I think that's a great next step is to have me circle back to our engineers and collect some questions and then set up a meeting if you've got a consultant or something that you want to bring to the table. And we can get moving on that. Okay? If that's a good summary of where we're gonna end up here.
I think that makes the most sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate getting to the point where we can have some next steps. I think that's very helpful.
Maybe set some deadlines, you know, some like.
We can have a personal opinion.
Oh, man, that's a lawyer trick right there.
Want me to blow, you want to set deadlines?
If you want my opinion. My technical opinion is nothing gets done unless you have some due dates. I mean, I know I would not send an answer to a complaint unless I had a due date. It's, oh, it's true. It's true. Well, they get paid for that.
How about this? I don't know if this is really, required, but I'm happy. I'm not sure if I can speak for the other staff, but I'm happy to follow up with them and do a coordinated kind of timeline for that.
Awesome,
right?
yeah. Just so
That-
they're
that
not,
makes sense.
it's not like
Yeah,
6 months later and nothing's
Exactly,
happened.
yeah. So maybe in the next week or so, we can connect, and, figure out what that path looks like.
Yep.
And that way we both kind of know
We should go to council next month.
that it's going to take a little bit of time. Maybe we're not gonna get to council next month. But that way we'll both have a path laid out. Okay. Thank you, you guys.
Board reports?
We gotta do, public comments.
Oh, yeah, we do. I'm so sorry. Any public comments on non-agenda items? Mr.
Actually, this is what I came here for. I did just want to express gratitude and thank you all for the support I received as a liaison for this board. Learned so much and I really do appreciate it. I wasn't able to appoint a new liaison, ran out of council members because we still have 2 seats that are vacant, but we should have those filled by the first meeting in February. So by your next meeting in February, I hope to have a liaison appointed. Obviously, you all know how to get a hold of me at least one way. So anything comes up that you want to reach out about, please do.
We were really glad to have you here. We miss you.
Yeah, I felt it. Thank you all.
Thank you. Any other public comments on non-agenda items? Okay, seeing none. Board reports. Commissioner Stewart?
Steering committee meeting tomorrow. So happy to see that process still continue. MACC meeting was held tonight. This was the third one. So this is the Marshall Area Conservation Committee. We have a tree planting scheduled for April 26th. This will be the first of 2 for this year. A lot of talk about trees, which I'm happy about for this community. But looking long-term at things we can do for getting more trees to build our canopy to keep it healthy and keep it going. I am curious through the master plan process and future discussions as a commission, what we can do to expand our tree code. So welcome that discussion at some point. I don't know the correct forum to do that, but you have my encouragement. And that'll be it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Fitzgerald.
No report.
Commissioner Banfield.
See you in 2 months.
I know.
I'll be gone for February and March, but back in April.
We'll miss you. You won't miss us. I know. I know. Commissioner Bright.
I'm out of state too in February.
Okay. Commissioner Hodo.
I got nothing.
Okay.
I will be out of town in February as well.
Ooh, we need to check and make sure we're gonna have a quorum in
Yep.
February. Yeah, so let's keep let's keep an eye on that because that could be a problem since we just set a public hearing for February. I'm going to be here as well.
That's fine, I'll multiple votes.
Okay, yes, let's confirm, please confirm, if we can make it on February, if we need to adjust that date. Do we need, like, can we figure out now if we need to adjust? We do have 4?
And they-
This is a lot of ifs. So let's,
Could everybody,
No, he's not voting.
can everybody email Marcia or could you email everybody and get a count for
Yes,
February?
yes,
Maybe do that by the end of by Friday?
yeah, because if we would need to adjust that timeline,
I don't want to put out the people who would come here to present.
yeah,
Jim said he was gonna be out of the country in February.
I don't know. He didn't say. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Oof. When is everyone leaving? No, like when are you, I'm just,
Leave on the 24th, 25th
of January?
Of this
of
month.
January.
Okay. I didn't know if, people were leaving the second week of January or February, if, we could move up the meeting or.
The rule back to allow Zoom meetings.
Yes.
I am not at liberty to make any statements about that. I don't know.
Well, yeah, let's
Okay.
collect the
Yes,
information.
please.
If we have to move the meeting, we can work on that.
Okay, yes, please.
We still have 2 open seats.
Okay, so I did get a couple of applications, but they will have to go through city council. Yes, and the mayor will have to appoint. So,
If they pass the mirror test.
we'll see. We'll try, we'll see how they get vetted and, okay,
Okay,
all right. Thank you.
anything else? No, it's late. Everybody wants to go home. I keep hearing sirens and that's not a good sign. All those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned.
Good job. Chair.